When you stop calling, texting, or chasing, that's when she starts thinking. Not because she misses the messages, but because she starts missing your energy. In silence, you become louder than ever before. Number 1, emotional detachment creates curiosity. When a man decides to pull away and detach emotionally, something powerful begins to happen beneath the surface. It's not about playing games or using silence as a weapon. It's about breaking a pattern she's grown too comfortable with. When a woman gets used to your presence, your availability, and your emotional responses, she begins to take them for granted. It's human nature. What's always there feels ordinary. But when that emotional consistency suddenly disappears, it creates a void that she can't easily fill. That void becomes curiosity. She starts wondering what changed, what she did, and why your energy no longer feels accessible. And that curiosity is the spark that often reignites her interest in you. Emotional detachment is misunderstood by most men. They think it means coldness, indifference, or pretending not to care. But true detachment isn't about pretending. It's about genuinely shifting your focus back to yourself, regaining control over your emotional center, and no longer allowing her actions or responses to dictate how you feel. When she senses that emotional independence, it triggers something deep within her psychology. A woman is drawn to emotional strength because it signals stability and confidence. The moment she feels that you no longer seek validation from her, she starts to question why. That question becomes a mental loop in her mind, one that she keeps revisiting even when she tries to ignore it. In the past, she may have felt your energy chasing her, your attention following her moves, your emotions reacting to her silence. But now, your detachment changes the entire dynamic. Suddenly, she feels unseen in a space where she was once admired. That contrast is what makes emotional detachment so powerful. It interrupts her emotional rhythm. She's used to receiving attention without earning it. When you stop giving it freely, she's forced to confront the reality that it's no longer guaranteed. And that loss of control over your emotions pushes her into curiosity. She begins watching, observing, and trying to understand you again. Emotional detachment creates space, and in that space, her imagination begins to work overtime. She starts analyzing your silence, reading between your words, and paying attention to what you don't say. She may replay old moments, trying to find where things changed, or check your social media just to get a glimpse of your life without her. That's because your absence now holds more emotional weight than your presence once did. When you were constantly available, your attention had little value. Now that you've withdrawn it, it becomes a rare currency, one she subconsciously wants to earn back. But for this to work, your detachment has to be real, not performed. Women can sense energy. They can tell when you're pretending to be distant, but still craving their attention behind the scenes. Real detachment comes when you emotionally release her, when you stop needing her response to validate your worth. You begin investing your time and emotions in yourself, in growth, purpose, and peace. The energy that once revolved around her begins to revolve around your own self-development. That shift changes everything about your aura. You become unpredictable again, and unpredictability is what rekindles curiosity and attraction. The power of emotional detachment lies in how it resets perception. When she feels your distance, she starts to remember the version of you she first desired, the confident, composed, self-assured man who didn't need to prove anything. In your absence, her emotions reconnect with that memory. She starts to compare that version with the man she took for granted. That contrast makes her realize how much of your energy she had and how much she's lost. Your detachment doesn't push her away, it draws her in through the mystery it creates. She begins to wonder what's changed, whether you've moved on, and most importantly, whether she still holds a place in your heart. Number 2, the law of reversal. The law of reversal is one of the most fascinating dynamics in attraction. It's the silent shift that happens when you stop chasing and start allowing her to feel the loss of your pursuit. When a man constantly seeks, texts, calls, and tries to fix things, he becomes predictable. His effort, though well-intentioned, turns into background noise. A woman doesn't value what's always available because it creates no emotional tension, no challenge to her self-perception. But the moment he stops, the moment he withdraws his effort and energy, something inside her rewires. What once felt ordinary suddenly feels scarce. What she once ignored begins to occupy her thoughts. This reversal of roles doesn't happen through force. It happens naturally through silence, distance, and emotional restraint. Every human being is wired to desire what feels slightly out of reach. It's not arrogance, it's psychology. When you pull back, she feels the imbalance for the first time. She senses a loss of control, and that loss stirs emotion. She starts wondering why your focus has shifted, why your tone has changed, why your messages have stopped arriving like before. Her mind tries to fill the gap left behind, and in doing so, she becomes the one emotionally chasing. The law of reversal works because attention is currency. The one who gives it freely loses power, while the one who withholds it gains it. When your attention no longer revolves around her, she begins craving it. That's how the dynamic flips without confrontational words. In relationships, attraction fades when there's no uncertainty left. When a man is always available, always responding, always reassuring, he becomes emotionally transparent. There's nothing left to discover. But when he suddenly detaches, when he no longer reacts, when his silence replaces his explanations, she's forced to look inward. She begins questioning her own behavior, replaying moments, analyzing what went wrong. This self-reflection is what the law of reversal thrives on. Her mind turns inward, not outward, and instead of trying to fix you, she begins to feel a need to re-earn you. This switch from comfort to curiosity is the moment power shifts. She starts to sense that she's no longer the center of your emotional world, and that realization makes her want to be again. The law of reversal also exposes authenticity. If your withdrawal is real, it carries calmness, not anger, not manipulation. You're not punishing her, you're simply choosing yourself. You no longer chase because you've accepted that chasing doesn't create love, it only feeds ego. You've stepped back not out of pride, but out of self-respect. That quiet confidence is magnetic. It creates an aura she can't define, but she feels it deeply. She'll test you to see if it's real, maybe send a casual message, maybe mention you indirectly just to gauge your response. But if your energy stays centered, if you respond with calm neutrality instead of excitement or resentment, she feels the reversal fully. Her ego feels unsettled, her emotions feel drawn, when you stop giving her the validation she's used to, her emotional system starts craving it. This is how attraction rebuilds itself. You're no longer chasing her approval. She's chasing the feeling of being desired by you again. It's not about manipulation. It's about balance, returning to a dynamic that was once one-sided. The man who used to overgive now holds back. The woman who once overlooked his presence now feels its absence. And in that quiet shift, something profound happens. She remembers how it felt when you cared, and she realizes how it feels now that you don't. That realization is the essence of the law of reversal, and it's what turns silence into power. Number 3, rebuilding mystery through absence. Mystery is one of the most powerful forces in attraction, and absence is what rebuilds it. When you step back from constant communication and emotional availability, you give her space to feel something she hasn't felt in a long time: uncertainty. In a world where attention is always instant and validation is only a message away, silence becomes rare, and that rarity captures attention. When a woman no longer knows what you're thinking, where your focus is, or how you feel, her curiosity begins to grow. She starts wondering what's happening behind your silence. Did you move on? Are you still thinking about her? Is there someone else who now holds your attention? These thoughts start to circle in her mind, and that curiosity becomes emotional tension. Rebuilding mystery doesn't mean ignoring her or playing detached games. It's about letting your absence speak louder than your words. When you step back with emotional maturity, it shows control and depth. You're not reacting. You're allowing distance to reveal truth. This creates an emotional vacuum, a space she'll subconsciously try to fill. When someone gets used to your constant presence, they stop seeing you clearly. But when you disappear from their daily rhythm, the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. She begins to realize how predictable your presence had been, how comfortable she felt with your attention, and how silent everything feels without it. That silence isn't emptiness, it's intrigue. It's the energy of someone who no longer needs to explain himself, and that energy pulls her in. A man who can master absence becomes unpredictable, and unpredictability is the foundation of desire. When she can no longer read your mind or anticipate your next move, her emotional balance shifts. She starts guessing, analyzing, and trying to understand you again, just like she did in the beginning. That sense of mystery reignites the attraction that familiarity once dulled. The human mind can't stand uncertainty. It seeks closure, and when she doesn't have it, her thoughts keep returning to you. She'll scroll through your old messages, replay moments in her head, or even find excuses to reach out. That's because your absence is no longer neutral. It has emotional meaning. It challenges her ego, triggers her emotions, and reawakens her curiosity about who you are now. But mystery can't be rebuilt if your absence feels forced. It only works when it's natural, when your silence comes from genuine detachment, not from waiting for her reaction. If you're constantly checking whether she noticed, she'll sense it. Real mystery comes from calm indifference, from being genuinely occupied with your life, your goals, and your peace. When your attention shifts inward, she can feel it without you saying a word. Women are deeply intuitive. They can sense when your energy no longer revolves around them. And that energetic shift is what makes your absence powerful. It's not about punishing her, it's about reclaiming your value by removing your emotional availability. During your absence, something else begins to happen. She starts to rebuild an image of you based on memory and imagination. Her mind fills in the blanks with curiosity, and in doing so, she often romanticizes you more than when you were present. The qualities she overlooked begin to resurface in her thoughts. She starts comparing you with others, and the difference becomes more noticeable. You're no longer the man always reaching out. You're the man she can't quite figure out. That uncertainty makes her restless, because she no longer feels in control of your emotions or your attention. Rebuilding mystery through absence also gives you the space to evolve. When you disappear, it shouldn't be out of weakness. It should be a period of transformation. Work on your goals, your mindset, and your presence. Let your silence be backed by progress. When she eventually sees you again or hears about you, there should be a difference in your energy. You've grown, but she doesn't know how much or in what way, and that keeps her guessing. The mystery isn't just in your silence, it's in who you're becoming while you're gone. That's the kind of absence that makes her chase, not because she's lonely, but because she feels drawn back to the unknown you've become. Number 4, self-transformation during distance. Self-transformation during distance is what separates men who heal from those who simply wait. Most men spend no contact counting the days, hoping for a message, checking her social media, and wondering if she's thinking about them. But the truth is, the time apart isn't a waiting period, it's a rebuilding phase. It's where you rediscover who you are without her presence shaping your emotions or decisions. When you stop reaching out and your world suddenly goes quiet, that silence becomes a mirror. You start seeing your own flaws, your emotional dependencies, and the ways you lost yourself trying to hold on to someone who stopped valuing your presence. That awareness can either break you or build you, depending on how you use it. If you use that space to grow, to evolve, and to create a stronger version of yourself, that's when true transformation begins. No contact isn't just about her missing you, it's about you finding you. When you step away from constant emotional noise, you give yourself room to breathe. You begin to focus on your own growth, your own peace, and your own goals. Maybe you start hitting the gym again, not to impress her, but because you want to feel strong in your own skin. Maybe you dive into your passions, rebuild friendships, or spend more time in silence understanding your emotions. Transformation isn't always loud. Sometimes it's in those quiet mornings when you realize you're no longer desperate for her reply. That's the shift that makes a man powerful again, when his emotional stability no longer depends on someone else's attention. During distance, something begins to change within your energy. You start to detach from the identity that revolved around being her man and reconnect with being your own man. You stop reacting to her silence and start mastering your own. That shift doesn't just make you stronger, it makes you more magnetic. A man who evolves in silence radiates confidence. When she eventually senses or sees that transformation, even indirectly, it creates emotional impact. She begins to wonder what happened to you, what changed, and how you managed to move forward so calmly. That curiosity often reignites her attraction because growth signals strength, and strength is something women instinctively respect and chase. The key is that your transformation has to be genuine. Many men pretend to move on, posting calculated updates or forced positivity to provoke jealousy. But women can sense authenticity. Real transformation doesn't need to be shown, it's felt. It's in how you speak, how you carry yourself, and how at peace you seem. When your energy changes from anxious to composed, from reactive to grounded, she notices. You become a mystery again, not because you're hiding, but because your emotional center has shifted. You're no longer seeking love from a place of lack. You're radiating it from self-worth, and that's the kind of change no one can fake. Self-transformation during distance also helps you see the relationship differently. You stop viewing her as the source of your happiness and start understanding that your happiness was always meant to come from within. You realize how much of your identity was wrapped around the idea of being wanted, and you start to rebuild that identity on your own terms. The more you grow, the less you chase. The less you chase, the more attractive you become. Not because you're trying to be, but because genuine peace is magnetic. When you're busy becoming better, she starts to feel your absence more deeply. Your silence no longer feels like punishment. It feels like evolution. And that evolution is what makes her question whether she ever truly knew your full potential. The beauty of transformation is that it flips the emotional script. When the distance ends, she might reach out expecting the same man she left behind, the one who over-explained, overgave, and overloved. But instead, she meets a man who doesn't need her validation, who has built his world again without her. That emotional independence is what changes everything. Because the moment she realizes she's no longer your focus, she begins to crave the place she once held in your life. And she doesn't just want to come back to the man she lost. She wants to chase the man you became. Number 5, strategic re-entry. The silent comeback. Strategic re-entry is not about returning to prove a point or to show her what she lost. It's about reappearing with a different energy that speaks louder than your words ever could. After a period of silence, your re-entry carries weight only if your absence had purpose. When you've truly detached, grown, and rebuilt your inner strength, the version of you that returns isn't chasing validation anymore. You're no longer trying to be noticed. You simply exist with calm confidence. That difference is what she feels immediately. The man she once knew, the one who over-explained, over-texted, and over-gave, is gone. In his place stands someone composed, still, and self-assured. That change doesn't need to be announced. It's not in what you say when you return, but in what you no longer need to say. When you re-enter her life after no contact, the biggest mistake you can make is trying to win her back. That approach carries the same energy that made her pull away in the first place. Strategic re-entry isn't about trying to reignite the same dynamic. It's about introducing a new one. The new version of you doesn't chase or convince. You communicate calmly, with self-control, and without any emotional agenda. You're no longer seeking her reaction. You're observing it. Your focus isn't on what she feels about you, but on how you feel around her. That quiet shift in perspective gives you the upper hand without arrogance. It's the energy of a man who has found peace within himself and no longer needs external validation to feel valuable. When you operate from that space, she senses it instinctively. Women are deeply intuitive. They can feel when your energy has matured and when your emotions are no longer driven by attachment. The silent comeback also relies on timing. You don't rush it. You don't reappear out of impatience or loneliness. You wait until your silence has done its work, until the curiosity, uncertainty, and emotional imbalance have built naturally. That's when your re-entry creates impact. A simple, calm message or a subtle interaction is often more powerful than a dramatic gesture, because at that point, she's already been thinking about you, questioning what changed, and wondering if you've moved on. When you reappear without neediness, it interrupts her assumptions. She expected you to come back emotionally weak, but instead, she meets a version of you that's emotionally grounded. That surprise shifts the dynamic instantly. It's not that you're trying to make her chase, it's that your composure makes her want to. Strategic re-entry also means you move differently. You speak less, but everything you say carries weight. You don't over-explain your silence or your growth, you let it show through your demeanor. The less you try to prove, the more believable your transformation becomes. When your words are minimal, but your energy is stable, she feels that contrast. The man who once reacted now responds. The man who once needed attention now offers presence. That's what makes the comeback silent. Not because you say nothing, but because your calmness says everything. Your silence communicates that you've healed, you've accepted, and you're no longer emotionally dependent on the past. That kind of energy unsettles her ego but attracts her heart. It reminds her of the version of you that once drew her in. Confident, centered, unpredictable. When you re-enter, it's also important to carry emotional detachment. That doesn't mean being cold or uninterested. It means you've released expectation. You're open to reconnection, but you're not defined by it. You allow her to feel your presence without pressure. You allow the dynamic to rebuild naturally, not through force. That neutrality keeps your energy balanced, which in turn keeps her curious. She'll notice that your focus isn't on her approval anymore. You're not trying to pick up where things left off. You're creating something new from a place of maturity. That's what makes a silent comeback so effective. It's not the return itself that matters, but the transformation that precedes it. When you walk back into her world with calm self-assurance, you remind her what real masculine energy feels like: steady, grounded, and unbothered. That kind of presence doesn't beg to be chased. It naturally pulls her in, making her want to reconnect, not because she's persuaded, but because she feels drawn to the man you've become. Number 6, indifference as the ultimate power. Indifference is the point where emotional control becomes power. It's not about pretending not to care or acting detached to appear strong. Real indifference comes when you genuinely stop letting someone's attention, silence, or rejection define your emotional state. When you reach that level of self-mastery, you become unpredictable, and unpredictability is magnetic. A woman can sense when your peace no longer depends on her approval. It unsettles her ego, but intrigues her curiosity. Because in the past, your reactions made her feel important. Your texts, your concern, your emotional responses gave her a sense of control. But when all of that stops, when you're no longer emotionally available in the same way, the balance shifts. She begins to wonder what changed. That wondering is what pulls her back toward you, not because she feels pity or guilt, but because she feels drawn to the strength of your indifference. Indifference communicates that you've reclaimed yourself. You no longer need her validation because your focus is back on your own life, your own peace, your own growth. That shift in attention is something every woman notices, even if she never admits it. When you stop chasing and start living, your energy becomes lighter but stronger. You walk differently, speak differently, and carry a calm confidence that wasn't there before. That's because you've detached emotionally from the outcome. You no longer care whether she returns or not out of pride, but out of acceptance. You've made peace with what happened. That inner acceptance is what gives indifference its power. It's quiet, it's unforced, and it cannot be faked. Pretending not to care is a performance that fades with time, but genuine indifference is a transformation that lasts. When a man truly reaches emotional indifference, he stops overanalyzing her every move. He doesn't check when she's online, doesn't decode every post, doesn't rehearse every possible interaction. He simply lives his life with focus and direction. That detachment is what draws her back because it breaks the dynamic she was used to. She no longer feels your energy orbiting around her. Instead, she feels your absence like a missing rhythm. And the mind naturally craves what once gave it validation. She begins to seek your attention, not out of affection at first, but out of curiosity, to see if she still holds the same power over you. But when she realizes that she doesn't, something deeper shifts inside her. The same man she thought she could always have now feels distant, unavailable, and emotionally self-contained. That distance creates desire. Indifference doesn't mean being cold or cruel. It's about emotional discipline. You don't react impulsively, you don't explain yourself unnecessarily, and you don't argue to prove your worth. You choose silence where you once would have chosen confrontation. You choose peace over validation, and that calm energy becomes your armor. A woman respects what she can't easily influence. When she senses that you are unaffected by her moods, tests, or mixed signals, she feels something she didn't before: respect. Respect is what rekindles attraction on a deeper level, because it's not about you being distant, it's about you being stable. You've become a man whose emotions are his own, and that's the kind of man she can't manipulate or predict. The beauty of indifference is that it changes the power dynamic without effort. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to act mysterious. You simply live without dependence. Your happiness no longer revolves around whether she calls or stays silent. You've reached a point where her return or her absence both mean the same. You remain centered. That emotional balance is what makes you powerful, because now she's the one questioning, overthinking, and wondering what you feel. The same woman who once felt secure in your attention now feels uncertain in your calmness. Indifference flips the entire emotional script. not because you tried to manipulate the situation, but because you mastered yourself. And once a man learns how to remain calm in the face of attachment, he stops chasing love and starts attracting it effortlessly. So if you're in that phase where you're tempted to break the silence, to reach out, or to prove your worth, stop for a moment and remember this: real attraction doesn't come from chasing, it comes from evolving. Let your absence speak. Let your silence build curiosity. Let your transformation do the talking. The moment you stop trying to convince her and start focusing on becoming the man you were meant to be, everything changes. Because when a man chooses peace over approval and purpose over obsession, he doesn't lose her, he makes her realize what she lost.